Minnesota tonight. Minnesota tonight.
Thank you. Tonight, we'll take 10 to talk about public transportation, how people in cities get to work, and how people in the suburbs get to Sneaky Pete's. If you keep up with the local news, you might know about Metro Transit's proposed Green Line expansion and the struggles it's faced getting passed in the legislature. And for a brief explanation of the entire situation, I give you this.
Hey, Choo-Choo Bob, what are you doing here?
Hi, Charlie. I'm just looking for a way to take the train all the way to the Eden Prairie Mall.
Oh, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, Bob, but that line doesn't exist yet. Huh? The Southwest Rail Line has run into trouble. In fact, it might not exist ever.
That's right, ominous bandana-wearing sock monkey. The Southwest Light Rail might not get built because of some ongoing struggles it's been having for some time. Now, these all started in 1988, when the Hennepin Railroad Authority proposed a light rail line that would take passengers from Hopkins, Minnesota to downtown Minneapolis. Now, that wasn't the only great idea from 1988. Others include Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. 1988 also featured Big, a movie starring Tom Hanks as a giant piano-playing statutory rape victim. There he is. And, not coincidentally, crack. Now, in 2016, all of these things have stuck around whether or not we have wanted them to, except for the Southwest Green Line, which is strange if you consider the popularity of our current light rail system. Metro Transit has two light rail routes, the Blue Line and the Green Line, both of which start in downtown Minneapolis and go south and east respectively. Together, they hit a variety of Twin Cities landmarks, including CHS Field, the University of Minnesota, the Mall of America, Target Field, and Minneapolis's new shiny Death Star. Basically, you can take the train to all the places where you pay a lot of money for different combinations of beer, cheese, and grease food, which, to be honest, is what Minnesota's all about. Because of this, Minnesotans really love light rails. So much so that in 2015 alone, ridership neared 23 million, an average of 68,000 weekday rides, which is higher than originally projected. These are some big numbers, like Tom Hanks' Big in the movie Big. But the dream of 1988 remains unfulfilled, and not only because Rick Astley never won a Grammy for Best New Artist. Fuck you, Tracy Chapman! Sorry, Fast Car's a beautiful song. I don't know why I said that. The corridor from downtown Minneapolis to the western suburbs has been proposed as an extension to the Metro Green Line, but has failed to be approved for a couple of reasons. First, the projected cost grew from $300 million to $1.9 billion, which was understandably jarring, almost as jarring as going to bed as a 13-year-old and waking up as a full-grown, boob-fluffing Tom Hanks. The Green Line expansion would be the biggest public project in the history of the state of Minnesota, using more state funds than the US Bank Stadium and Target Field projects combined. Additionally, there are ongoing lawsuits against the project with concerns about its environmental impact from both the Lakes and Parks Association and a group of Minneapolis residents. But even despite these issues, the Southwest Rail Line aims to improve Twin Cities' public transportation system. And rightfully so. Public transportation is a necessary part of any major city. I mean, where would New York be without its subway? Or San Francisco without its trolleys? Or LA without its crushed pipeline of dreams? What also stands in the way of the Green Line expansion is the fact that Minnesota has a problem funding public transportation. The Twin Cities metro area devotes only 0.25% of its sales tax revenue on transit maintenance and expansion, which is 4 times less than the spending of other similarly sized cities like Denver, Boston, and Cleveland. That's right, Cleveland. A city full of people who are too defeated to leave Ohio spends more money on public transit than we do. Admittedly, the Twin Cities doesn't have a public transit system to brag home about, but that wasn't always the case. Here's a map of the Twin Cities rail transit system as of 1913. Now here's a map of the Twin Cities rail transit system as of 2016. That's right. 100 years ago, people may have been polio-stricken corset wearers, but they still had an easier time getting to work. The elimination of these lines has left non-drivers no efficient way of getting around, and mustachioed villains no place to tie up their damsels. Now, if you want to get around, you're better off offering that bandana-clad monstrosity a beach in exchange for a ride to the Eden Prairie Mall. I would not suggest that. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in that predicament. According to the 2012 census, this is official. According to the 2012 census, approximately 20% of Minneapolis households don't own a car. That means, statistically, there's a good chance that if someone asks you if you would like to see their whip, get ready to see an actual whip. That's right. Many households without a vehicle tend to be lower income, which makes sense because owning a car is expensive. Even with costs at a 6-year low, according to AAA, the average yearly cost of owning and operating a car is $8,500. Those who can't afford a car are bound by the limitations of our transit system, which often means limited access to many of the job vacancies that are booming in suburban towns in the outskirts of the Twin Cities. If job seekers from the Twin Cities don't have access to these jobs, the entire foundation of the suburban economy might collapse. And as we all know, the suburban economy is founded upon the trifecta of Patagonias, hoverboard maintenance shops, and Cold Stone Creamery, the only place where you can get ice cream while humiliating someone in the process. Sing, damn it! I tip thee a quarter and sing me a song! One of the major reasons our transportation system is commonly disparaged by puppets is because transportation policy is ultimately decided by our government. And like everything in government, this issue is split upon party lines. Led by Governor Mark Dayton, a man who looks like he told dad jokes even before he had kids, state Democrats generally want to fund public transportation projects. And on the other side, we have Speaker of the House Kurt Doubt, a man who looks like he's still haunted by the fact that his high school football team never made it to state. He told me, it's true. Leading Republicans who generally dislike funding public transportation projects and taking off their Letterman jackets. Now, I know this looks like another classic Republican versus Democrat issue, but when you look at it closely, you can see that Republicans from rural and suburban areas don't think public transit matters to their constituents, and Democrats from metro areas do. It's a classic bring it on scenario. On one side, you have a bunch of suburbanites trying their best, and on the other side, you have minorities from the city getting shafted. Clovers for life. Have you seen the movie? That's what happens, okay? Don't say, oh. Go back 20 years and say that to the writers of the movie, okay? In fact, there are a lot of benefits to public transportation, even for people who own cars. Improving alternatives to driving will help relieve already crowded roads and highways in the Twin Cities, as well as prepare for the over 750,000 projected drivers planning to move to the metro area within the next 20 years. Less people on the roads also lessens pollution, which benefits both the environment as well as the public health. A 2015 report from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency estimated that smog created in part by motor vehicle engines contributes to nearly 2,000 premature deaths annually in the Twin Cities alone by aggravating respiratory conditions. Even a slight reduction could potentially save over 200 lives. Republicans who control the state house don't want to spend money on public transportation. Their party platform explicitly states that road and bridge safety should take precedent over new light rail construction. And focusing on these things is reasonable, especially when you consider our state has a terrible history with bridges. That's right, I'm talking about Teddy Bridgewater. He's the I-35W of the Vikings quarterbacks. He can't make a pass, he's terrible under pressure, and he has a history of letting people down. But it's instead of just focusing on roads and bridges, state Republicans have effectively obstructed many public transportation projects. Just take a look at how they voted in the Southwest Light Rail.
Well, Republican leaders said today also that they will not provide a single vote for the Southwest Light Rail line that goes from Minneapolis down through the western suburbs because they say it's a waste of money.
Okay, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Minnesotan Republicans probably just don't want to spend that $1.9 billion. That was too much to pay and would like to spend that somewhere else. But you might be surprised by the actual amount the state would have had to pay.
That would be $135 million that the legislature must provide, and then the feds, Frank, would kick in another $895 million.
All we had to do is pay literally 14% for the federal government to pay 86% of the bill. And worst of all, delaying this project has cost a lot of money in and of itself. The Metropolitan Council has stated that every week the project has been postponed, the cost for the line has increased $1 million. Hell, you could book Tom Hanks recreating the piano scene from Big for only $100,000. That means every week we postpone the light rail expansion, we are missing out on the chance for 10 Minnesotans to dance on the very large piano with an American treasure, an absolute American treasure. And what's worse is that this delay in negotiations for the Southwest Light Rail has postponed other major political decisions in the state's bonding bill. Because of a lack of compromise, the state legislature adjourned without passing a necessary bill, which would have helped finish hundreds of necessary construction projects around the state, create over 30,000 jobs, and help the state's sick and homeless. All this great stuff for the state was lost as a result of near iration and hatred of public transit. And at times, this hatred has turned not only from public transit itself, but to people who ride it. Just look at what State Representative Jim Newberger, a Republican from Becker, Minnesota, said in a debate about a proposed extension of the North Star commuter rail.
About not maybe a half a mile, quarter a mile from the rail tracks is the St. Cloud State Prison. Boy, wouldn't that be convenient to have that rail line going from the prison to North Minneapolis, or to any other section of our state.
That's right! Boo! Fucking boo! Now, if you thought that was bad, let us look at how Newberger tries to apologize.
I'm not casting any aspersions on North Minneapolis, okay?
Yes, you are! According to our racist aspersion meter, that statement clocks in at a full-blown Thanksgiving uncle, right above early campaign Trump and guy in class who's playing the devil's advocate. Ultimately, the Met Council found a different way to fund the Southwest Light Rail expansion, and the line will be built. And when reached for comment on this continued dedication to the Southwest Green Line project, Governor Dayton gave this statement.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down.
Never gonna give you up, Southwest Light Rail. Okay, sorry about that, we had to do it. But seriously, if congressional opposition persists, Minnesota is going to continue leaving thousands without access to jobs, slowing down our economic development, and we're going to have a lot of time to think about these things while we're stuck in traffic. So, Minnesota Republicans, can we talk for a second? White dude. What's happening here? You're not even being Republicans anymore. By opposing public transit projects, you're costing the state millions of dollars and losing us jobs, which we know are your top two turnoffs right after gay climate change and a uterus. I know it's been hard for you these past 8 years under Barack Hussein Obama, but keep your head up, hold your Reagan body pillow tight, and build a light rail. And if you do this one little thing for us, maybe, just maybe, we'll let you invade Canada. Thank you. Stay nice, Minnesota.
Minnesota tonight. Tune in. Minnesota tonight. Minnesota tonight.